Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Home Tech Podcast. Jason Griffin here. So happy to have you with us. I am joined, as always, by my partner, Seth Johnson. Seth, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. You got your creepy suit on?
I do. I got my baseball bat ready.
It's good. Smash up some touch panels.
Let's go beat them out of the wall and make sure they're not working anymore.
Yeah, this is funny. You guys, gosh, we were talking about it before we hit record here tonight, and I had forgotten there was some dialogue about it in the hub. This IT movie that's coming out, and when I first heard you guys talking about it, I thought it was a comedy. It turns out it's actually a thriller, and talk about dramatizing the idea of smart home security. Holy cow! Yeah,
I mean, this is a Pierce Brosnan movie. It looks pretty bad, but it's got the creepy IT guy who comes over to his house, kind of gets miffed by Pierce Brosnan's character, and then decides to hack all the devices in his house and his airplanes and anything you can think of, and make the guy's life miserable. So it's quite funny. My favorite part has to be the touchscreen being smashed out of the wall with a baseball bat. That's beautiful.
And how many home technology users have had an experience where they would have loved to just pull out a baseball bat and smash
dealers,
the touchscreen? Well, both.
Yeah.
Both, for that matter. Yeah, I got to say, I don't think this movie's going to do any favors to the especially the budding DIY smart home. It's like, gosh, people are going to watch this and just be terrified.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's probably good for DIY. If you trust yourself and the devices you're putting in, then maybe you don't have to worry about some creepy IT guy coming over and hacking them and looking at who knows what through your touchscreen cameras.
Right.
I don't know. It's a little over the top. Of course, it's a movie. It's Hollywood. But I don't know. I think we don't have that much to worry about, especially with the newer devices that are coming on. I don't know. I guess we have to trust these devices like Nest Cams and Canary. If we put a camera in our house, like, we have to trust these companies to update them and make them unhackable, where people can't get in and take a look at what's going on.
Yeah. Yep. It's a leap of faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's dive in here, Seth. We've got a good show this week. It's just going to be you and me kicking around a handful of news stories. Actually, pretty busy week in the smart home. So we look forward to diving into some of that. But before we do, as always, we want to send out a big thank you to our supporters, our patrons of the show. If you are interested in learning how you can support our efforts here on the Home Tech Podcast, you can head over to HomeTech.fm/support. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/support. And that's where you can learn about our Patreon page. Become a member of that. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month. We've got some various incentives in place to help sweeten the deal a little bit, including access to our private Slack channel, The Hub, which has turned into a really great community of home technology enthusiasts and professionals. And we have some really great dialogue in there. So would encourage everybody to go check that out. And once again, a huge thank you to all of you who have done that already.
Yep, absolutely. And if you haven't received a confirmation of that and you have signed up on the Patreon, please let me know, because I can send you another invitation. That's happened a couple of times that I can think of, that I've sent the invitations out, they haven't reached somebody. But I just wanted to throw that out there, and also say thank you to the patrons who have donated a little bit of money, $1 a month, to help out with the show. We definitely appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's jump in here. First story we wanted to talk about. This was a story that I saw on Digital Trends actually a number of months ago, Seth, and you and I had talked about it a little bit off air. I thought it was an interesting idea for a blog series, and it was about smart home technology, but in a renter environment. And that's obviously something that a lot of people who are getting into the smart home and looking at have to contend with, because obviously not everybody owns a home. And so what are the implications to trying to install smart home technology if you don't own the house? And obviously that's gotten a lot easier over the years with low cost and wireless technologies and this sort of thing. In any event, that blog series extended over a number of months, and there was a piece that surfaced this week where they kind of did a wrap up. The author kind of went through and talked about the various home technologies that she had put in her place and the pros and cons of those and what she discovered. And I thought it was a very well written article and a very nice insight into the user experience, the overall customer experience for a lot of these very inexpensive, easy to install, or at least purportedly easy to install home technologies. So she had a number of categories like smart lights. I thought this one was interesting because she did dive into the difference in the pros and cons of like a in-wall smart switch like a Lutron Caseta versus a smart light bulb like a Philips Hue. Clearly, she was on the side, I would say, for obvious reasons of being a fan of the Lutron Caseta. And we can talk about that a little bit. But also there were smart home hubs, smart locks, smoke alarms, even a smart bed that she tried out. So there's a lot of different categories. And like I said, I thought it was pretty cool to see what her experiences were with those. And I thought the article and the series in general was very well put together.
Yeah, it's a really smart idea, especially around like a renter's type setup. Like I noticed that there's no thermostat here, right? It's some lighting, and a smart bed, cameras. I guess the smoke alarm is the closest thing that she has that's like a permanent thing that would have to go in that you couldn't replace. But everything else is just a great idea. I think it's really smart. It's a good article. And it has like the pros and cons on each one of these things, including the $900 smart bed, which I'm reading about and finding very interesting right now.
Well, they're putting smarts in just about everything these days, which segues nicely into our next story here that we wanted to touch on. And this was another one that, Seth, I thought was really well put together. Chris Gamble over in the Hub sent this our way during the week, and it's the Ultimate Guide to Smart Home Compatibility. I have to say I wasn't familiar, admittedly, with this website ahead of time, homealarmreport.com. We'll give them a little plug there. Really great article. You can tell that a lot of time went into putting this together because it's full of, graphics and tables and what's compatible with what and what's not compatible and pricing and a very, very nice resource, I would say, for anybody who's curious about DIY home technology and what are the different platforms that you should be considering and the pros and cons of those. I thought this was excellent. And like I said, looks like they put a lot of time into it. This is sort of an idea for a piece that, Seth, you and I have kicked around a little bit. We just haven't carved out the time to do it. And so, hats off to whoever put this together. It's, I thought, very nicely done. Exactly.
This is one of those things that this doesn't look like it's much time to do, but holy cow, this takes forever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember I tried to keep up with it and update it. There's a list of HomeKit compatible devices on our website somewhere back when HomeKit first debuted. Right. And man, just tracking down press releases when things were released and what the caveats or some of these things are. Very, very tough to do. This goes into quite a few more things than just HomeKit. Like it has HomeKit compatible devices. It works with Nest devices. If this then that stuff. I mean, this is probably the definitive DIY guide. If you are interested in having more information than you know what to do with, this is where you head.
Yeah, I would agree.
This is very smart.
Yep.
Very smart idea.
Nicely done. Well, speaking of DIY and consumer focused products, we had Richard Berry on from iHummingbird last week, so episode 153. Really enjoyed that conversation with him, and if you didn't catch it or don't know about iHummingbird, Richard has built a traditional home technology installation business in a sense, but he's built it using very different techniques because he's really focused on leveraging consumer and even what people would think of as pure sort of DIY type products as a way to open the door and leverage relationships to get bigger sales in the more traditional integrator sense. So I thought it was a cool episode. I enjoyed learning about what he was doing, and we got a lot of really good feedback on this episode. I thought, again, most of it came over in our private Slack channel, the Hub, and I thought maybe we could just take a couple minutes and touch on a few of these because, like I said, I thought they were insightful, and I think that the episode clearly illustrated that that his techniques are different, and it kind of struck a chord with people.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably one of, especially in our Slack channel and a couple of comments on Twitter here and there, one of our more popular episodes. So if you have a chance, go back and take a listen to that, because it was pretty good. I thought the interview was pretty good, and the whole show was pretty good. So listen to the whole thing, not just the interview.
Yeah, definitely.
The show. Let's see. Who do you want to start with? Bruno, I guess.
Yeah,
you had a couple.
Yeah, I've got one here. Bruno, who put up again over in our Slack channel, and he was talking about just he agreed basically with what one statement that Richard had said, which was, I don't remember if I'm using the words exactly, but it was adapt or die basically, and it sounds kind of doomsday-ish, but I think that the sentiment is clearly one that Bruno agrees with. And, he made a comment that talking about one day or another, architects aren't going to necessarily need custom installers to design an intelligent house, because it's just going to sort of be people that are already on the team may already have enough knowledge. A lot, his point being, a lot of this stuff is getting so commonplace and almost commoditized that that knowledge is just going to be sort of embedded in architecture firms, maybe even builder teams, who knows. And he went on to talk about Amazon and how big of a deal that is, that they're now sending teams out into the field, and that how we as a CEDIA industry really need to think about where does that leave us, and are we really needed in that equation? And even electricians, to that point, are really getting into more options as far as being able to install smart home technology. So just the growing number of trades and companies and people who are going to be capable of implementing smart home technology, and how traditional home technology professionals need to really, think about that and engage what that means.
Yeah, it's adapt. Yeah, you have to adapt to the new market that's coming up. I hate to jump over this story and this follow up, but this definitely ties in with two of the stories we're going to talk about tonight. Maybe a little bit later on with HomeKit and Leviton, and their efforts into basically bringing in low cost smart devices, smart lighting control, HVAC control. Those types of devices getting installed in a house directly, either from the builder or from maybe the electrician or the HVAC professional.
Right.
Those devices will be in the house before you walk in the door, and that's before you ever talk to a customer. I kind of laugh about this, but you drive around town and you see need computer help, and you have this guy's number written on like a stop sign or something like that.
Right.
It may be the new norm, like in 10 years, that you see, hey, need AV help or automation help, and some guys, some guy's number are written on the stop sign there. So, I mean, I think the word you used was commoditized. Mm-hmm. We're definitely seeing that now. I mean, it's at the point of no return. I think at this point, with the $50 dimmers, 100-watt 1,000-watt dimmers that Leviton's putting out on the market. So,
yeah, and that was
huge plays going on.
Yeah, and that was Bruno, friend of the show. We've mentioned a number of times, founder of Krika, which is a remote systems management platform, and a very loyal listener to the show. So Bruno, thank you for chiming in there. Another player on the vendor side of the space, Joey Kolchinsky from OneVision, chimed in and said, I'm gonna quote a little bit here. I'll read through this. I may paraphrase just a little bit, but said, I really liked this week's show, good topics, etc. Richard at iHummingbird commented on a couple of things I thought would be good to revisit. He said video distribution is dead and has no place in the home. He left, and I'll just stop there and say that, again, if you didn't listen to the show, Richard has a very different approach to the smart home, and part of that approach is he's basically moved away from the idea of suggesting or installing video distribution at all. And I think if you go back and listen to it, it sounded pretty definitive, but I don't think that he necessarily meant that it has no room at all in the smart home. There are applications that Joey goes on to mention, very high-end, large homes, extreme aesthetic requirements, large number of audio-video zones, wired environments because wireless can't be relied on. So, there are, I think the point being, there are situations where video distribution, and I've said this before, I think still has its place, but arguably a shrinking footprint. And I know, Seth, that's something that you and I have talked about a lot on our show.
Right. We've been talking about streaming services gaining popularity. I think he pretty well defended it in the show. And I kind of had to go back and listen too. He was talking about, cable boxes these days. You used to have to distribute those around the house. Now you get a little small cable box, put it with the TVs, and you get a big giant DVR, and it can sit in the cabinet. And all the smaller cable boxes can basically, they're just little like dumb terminals of the main cable box, main DVR. TiVo does this, has done this for years. Comcast X1 is doing this. I'm sure others are, Joey Hopper, those are all doing it too.
Yep.
So I think that's more what he was talking about. And I think for the vast majority of people, that makes sense. And video distribution doesn't.
Yeah.
But I agree, it still has its place in some locations.
Yeah. And TJ over in the chat room is kind of echoing what you just said. And, says, I don't see video distribution being realistic for 95% of people out there. It's nice, but not necessary most of the time. And I would agree with that. I think your point is valid. The point Richard was making, that video distribution back when DVRs were very specialized and they costed more, you could have one DVR and distribute that out to multiple TVs. But now, like you said, that DVR functionality is really more distributed throughout the system, and so that takes away one big check mark for video distribution. But there are some applications where it does make sense. The other one here we'll hit on a little bit quicker that Joey pointed out was saying that Richard talked about Snap AV Oversee Pro, which is the remote systems management platform, has a long way to go, and Joey was sort of questioning that, more detail on that. Not going to dive in and dissect that, but I would encourage people to go back and listen to our episode with Kenny Kim, who's the product manager of Oversee. And we had him on not too long ago. I'm going to see, it looks like episode 139. So HomeTech.fm/139. And I think Kenny Kim even admitted as much at the time. That was back in December of 2016, so 3 or 4 months ago. But at the same time, Oversee Pro is rapidly evolving and being developed. So I'm sure that a lot of that has changed in the 3 or 4 months since we spoke.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that. I kind of got out of the industry before Oversee Pro hit, and I had used the Oversee things, like the little watt box, basically, to power cycle some cable boxes once. But that's about as far as I got with Oversee.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I don't know too much about it.
Right. Yeah, no problem. We'll move on from that. The only other one I wanted to mention was Greg Scott, who another very loyal supporter of the show. Thank you, Greg. He chimed in. And Greg is part of a CEDIA group, which these are, like, as I understand it, small work groups of people that get together periodically and share ideas and best practices. And the topics that were discussed on our episode were brought up in Greg's CEDIA group. And I thought... the takeaway I got from what Greg summarized was that there's a number of people in his group that just have been doing this for a very long time. And for them, it doesn't really make sense to make a big pivot like that and start over. And I think, that struck me because I do think there are a ton of companies in our industry who have been doing this very successfully for a very long time and probably have owners who are getting near retirement. And for them, it may not be as big of a deal or a threat necessarily to see all of these things changing, but I think particularly for the younger people in the industry, it's more important to be kind of considering all of this.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I look at some of the older. I mean, I've worked for a number of places, and the theme that kind of like traversed them all is like there's just no exit strategy. I think Richard definitely had an exit strategy. I think he definitely was thinking of that, at least thinking of the way he could position his company to having an exit. And I just don't see very many integrators even thinking about that. They think about the service. They think about getting out there, plugging away, putting in a hard day's worth of work. And that does count. Definitely does count. I mean, that's doing good work and good business definitely gets you a long way. But at the end of 20 years worth of work, you got to look back and say, okay, what did I get out of this other than bringing home a paycheck? And man, that's going to be a tough conversation for a lot of guys to like sit there and think about when they hit retirement and figure out, you know, where do I go now? When I leave the company, does the company completely shut down?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, do they hand it off to the next guy in line? Where does he take it if the market's completely changed and nothing has been done to prep for that?
Right. Well, it's a good point. Anyways, a great episode. Like you said, I'd encourage people, if you didn't listen to it, to go back and check it out. Once again, HomeTech.fm/153. Next story, Seth, you alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about iHummingbird just now, and that couple of stories, Apple and Leviton, who both obviously very different companies coming at the market from very different angles, but really opening the door up to this technology going straight to different trades like builders and electricians. So there was a story circulating this week about Apple clarifying their HomeKit website and breaking down the accessories into different categories. And I didn't think that was all that exciting, but I clicked on the story nonetheless just to take a look and happened to hop over to the HomeKit page and scroll through it to check that out. And I noticed something that I have to admit, I don't know, Seth, if this is a new thing in a recent edition or if this was on the site a couple of weeks ago when it first was launched. But I scrolled down to the bottom of the page and saw a very prominent list that Apple had put on there of builders that they're working with. And it says, build HomeKit into your new home. These leading builders offer HomeKit packages to make your home smart from the start. Lists Brookfield, KB Home, Lennar, and R&F. And I know I've read individual news and press releases on all of those companies as they've kind of come to the market with that. And obviously, I think that list is bound to grow. And it was just a little bit surprising to me, I guess. There's a clear incentive, I think, for builders to have Apple HomeKit as part of their branding and to be able to use that as a selling point. But the fact that that's going the other way as well, and that Apple is really touting that, I thought was kind of interesting to see, and I think speaks to Apple's commitment to the smart home.
That list doesn't have to get very much bigger. I mean, Brookfield, KB, Lennar, those are some massive companies.
Yeah, it's very true.
To be doing. R&F is the only one I don't know of, and it may just be that it's in a different region of the States here.
Yeah, I remember reading about it. I hadn't heard of them either, and I think it was kind of a big regional player, but I can't remember which part of the country they were in.
Right. I mean, those are tens of thousands of homes out of each company each year, and to be doing this much effort and marketing with Apple, I mean, they're definitely interested in the smart home. And I mean, scroll through the list that's on Apple's website. It's a pretty good gear on there for home automation. And I mean, we're talking like Ecobee's on there. Lutron Caseta, we mentioned before, is on there. Like, there's some good stuff that goes through HomeKit.
Yep.
So
and growing.
Yeah, and growing. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they did you see? I don't know if you saw this, but I have to go back and dig it up. I think Dave Zatz or somebody he follows caught it. Their Ecobee actually has Ecobee 4 coming. I mean, they have the 3 now, but obviously you got to think that the next number will be 4. On this website, they actually listed Ecobee 4 announced, but it hasn't been announced yet. So,
funny.
They pre-announced it for Ecobee. Yep.
Well, I'm sure Ecobee wasn't too upset. If you're going to get your news leaked, that's having it leaked on the Apple site, that's I suppose, is not a bad place for that to happen.
No, it's definitely a good place.
Absolutely.
Well, the next story I alluded to earlier was a CE Pro article that we saw kind of right after the show hit, I think, last week. Leviton is launching a massive mass market home automation system, and they're starting off with Wi-Fi lighting, which will also be HomeKit compatible.
Yep.
So pretty big stuff. I think this is awesome. I think I read in here there was a 1,000-watt dimmer that was $50, and I'm just, wow, that's a great price.
Yeah, it was a very compelling price point. No hub required. Obviously, that's because they're using Wi-Fi. There was some dialogue in the CE Pro article that I read down in the comment section that we won't dive into and dissect here, but I thought it was worth a read, sort of a spirited dialogue about why would you do this based on Wi-Fi, and is Wi-Fi a proper protocol to be doing smart lighting on? But I think
Wi-Fi has proven itself at this point. Like, yes, it's had its problems, but in the houses that this is going to be installed in, Wi-Fi is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah,
and we've got some pretty decent Wi-Fi products out there with the mesh products like Amplify and Eero and Luma. Like,
that's true.
That really can't be an argument anymore.
Yeah, no, I think it. I think in some cases it still is a valid argument. I'd maybe disagree just a little bit, because there are so many people out there who still use, the single Comcast router or whatever their provider gives them, and it's tucked down in a far corner of the house, and they don't necessarily realize what the implications are of that. But to your point, there are very robust and relatively affordable solutions for that in place now, and so again, I think reasonable minds can disagree. To me, it's definitely not a deal breaker. I think for their target consumer, the fact that it doesn't require an additional piece of hardware, i.e. a hub, is a great selling point. The price points were super competitive. Amazon Echo compatibility. I won't say the A word. I'm trying to get better about that, Seth. So we'll go with
I
Echo.
bleeped you last week.
Yes.
I mean, these guys are coming out with a hubless system. I'm not going to get to use the bell.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's true. What a bummer.
Yeah. I have to use it to bleep you.
But yeah, just coming back to that full circle, really Leviton is obviously a brand that integrators, home technology professionals, even probably some home technology enthusiasts and consumers are aware of. They've been around forever, 110 years old, I think is what I read in the article. So a very old company, well established in the space, but I think very heavily used amongst electricians. And so what are the implications there in terms of if you do have not the DIY crowd, but the do-it-for-me crowd, are they going to think to call a home technology, low voltage guy for this, or are they going to think to call their electrician? And I would have to say it's probably going to be the latter.
Or, as we discussed, are these devices just going to be installed in the house, and you, the integrator, are going to show up and they'll already be there?
Yeah, that's a good point as well.
And you'll have to know how to work with them and integrate.
Yep. You got it. Well, let's move on here, shifting gears a little bit. Great story in Forbes this week from Mike Wolf, who is another really good friend of the show, and regular listeners will be very familiar with his name. And he's a contributor over at Forbes and does some great work with them, and did an article that caught my attention. It's titled, "Here's Why Chat May Replace Apps as the Way to Control Your Smart Home." And Seth, we kicked around this topic, I don't know, a number of weeks ago. I forget how, I think it came up in the context of Mark Zuckerberg and the smart home experimentation that he was doing, and how he was leveraging texting, I think Facebook Messenger, as a way to control his smart home. And I think that I made a comment on, Mike had shared the article on LinkedIn, I believe, or I shared it and just commented to him that I feel like chatbots are kind of a sleeper technology in this battle for next generation interfaces, and they don't get any of the attention that voice control gets because they're not nearly as sexy or glamorous. But I think that they make a lot of sense. I think about how often during the day I'm sending quick messages to my wife or coworkers or whoever it is. It's just become a very easy and frictionless way to communicate. And I just don't see any reason why that wouldn't extend into being a very effective way to control a smart home. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about this in relation to HomeKit. If you could have a contact in your phone and you could text Siri and tell her to turn off the lights or turn on the lights before you got home, that would be great. Like, this is, I don't know. This is one of those things. Like you said, it's a sleeper technology. And I think we heard about it with Mark Zuckerberg, but I think we also talked about it with Alex over at Josh AI. They already have this implemented, so you can actually use a little chat bot with their platform to kick on and off stuff at their house. I don't know. I think that this is a pretty cool setup here.
Yeah, it is.
And
it is.
I'm hoping to see more it seems like it's something easy to do. Like modern integration companies, like maybe Control 4 or Savant, could do something like this and make it work. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Not having any, zero background in software development or anything like that. I don't know from a technical perspective if what I'm saying is accurate, but it does seem to me like it would be something far easier to implement than voice, which just has a lot more nuance to it.
Right. And you possibly could do different languages a lot easier than you could in voice. Still kind of looking at, how Amazon has maybe 2 languages, I think it's doing now. Apple is doing a ton, like 20 something, and Google is like right behind them on their heels.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's got to be customer service chatbots in every freaking language at this point. So let's just use those for something good. Get them off websites and put them in the smart home.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Alex, that reminds me, I did see, I think in an email or something that came my way this week, there was CDO was promoting a talk that Alex gave about, how humans will interface with technology in the year 2020. And a very great talk, if you haven't seen it, about next generation interfaces and some of the pros and cons and challenges to implementation. And Alex is a guy who really knows his way around that stuff. So we'll include a link to that, HomeTech.fm/154, and would encourage you to go check that out.
Does it include the Ocarina of Time?
I don't know if that's something that Alex has implemented, but after this episode, he may change his mind.
Right. Well, this is actually from him, so maybe he's doing it right now.
So he knows about it already. Okay.
Yeah. He posted this over in our Slack channel. And I was telling you about this before the show. There's the Zelda Ocarina of Time video game from, probably back in the 90s, 2000s era.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I am not a Zelda player. My wife is like avid, like she's in there probably playing the new thing now. I just kind of watch.
Did you guys get a Switch?
Yeah, we did. I got it.
Nice.
I just walked up to Target opening morning and walked right in and bought one.
Yeah.
And there was like 2 people outside.
So, well, I don't want to sidetrack you, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. That thing is crazy popular.
Yeah, it's a different type of device. I don't see how it's going to hold up with kids.
Yeah.
It's a little tablet with like ears on the side of it, and everything kind of like clicks apart, and I just don't see how kids are gonna. It's not gonna live.
Well, you got a couple of years until you have to worry about that.
Stay away from the Switch.
Yeah.
But no, sidetrack. The game is fun. We've only been playing Zelda on it, so super fun game. But getting back to this guy has put together kind of like an Amazon Echo looking device with a Raspberry Pi inside, a microphone, and he's able to play the ocarina, which is a little instrument there used in the video game, to play the songs from the video game to control parts of his home, like his thermostat, door lock, and
I love it.
Lights. Yeah, it's great. A really good video.
Completely not practical, but what a fun, I'm sure he probably had a great time putting that together, and it's a really cool video to watch. And just if there's makers in the audience and people who are into doing those sort of Raspberry Pi type of projects, I know there's a huge sort of culture that's blossomed around what you can do with those. And I thought this was one of the most innovative projects that I've seen.
Yeah, definitely a labor of love. Like there's wires and
around the doorknob. It's like this crazy. You got to watch it.
He made all of his own stuff, but definitely there's some like inside jokes that you'll only get if you're a Zelda fan or somebody who passively watches other people play Zelda, like me.
If you're a Zelda fan, or if you live with one.
Exactly. You'll get some of the jokes and sound effects that he builds into the system. So thought it was a really cool project, and it definitely, I'm glad it was shared on the hub, and I'm hoping if you like this kind of thing, go check it out. It's really funny.
Yep. Yeah, definitely worth a watch. Seth, we're gonna close the week out here with we started the show with a security story, and we're gonna close out with one as well. And it turns out that burglars can very easily make the Nest security cameras stop recording. And there's a whole article explaining why, and it's a Bluetooth hack and sounds fairly sophisticated, but I think you came up with a an arguably a simpler way to do that.
Yeah, I thought maybe they could just cut the 20-foot cable that comes out of those stupid things. I mean, you can get complicated and do this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, a dumb burglar is going to look up and see a camera with a cable hanging out. With a power cord. He's going to cut the cable. Yeah.
When you sent me this link when we were doing the show prep, I was ready to. Honestly, I read the headline and I thought it was going to be like a story from The Onion or something, like a satire, like explaining the complicated steps of walking up and finding the power cord and unplugging it from the wall. But nope, turns out it's an actual story about a Bluetooth hack. And, I guess we got to worry about stuff like that. But geez, if your camera's plugged into an electrical outlet, especially one that's within easy reach from ground, from grade there, then I don't think anybody's going to be thinking about how to hack into your camera's Bluetooth.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it says this isn't patched yet. I'm sure it'll be patched soon. This is kind of a big brand for this to kind of happen to, and I don't know. It says that it doesn't do anything but kind of take it down for 60 to 90 seconds.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's not like a huge exploit. I'm hoping. There was also a rumor that I don't think we had in our show notes that I'll have to dig up and find, that Nest was going to come out with some other products, and I'm hoping we finally see a PoE camera from them. I mean, if we don't, then just write Nest off, write them off into the sunset, because oh man.
Yeah, we had Gene Lanoy on, who's the head of Nest Pro not that long ago, and really enjoyed the conversation. We joke about the outdoor camera, and I'm on record as saying I think that was a big miss. But honestly, their other products are solid. They've done a great job at building awareness. They had some issues there with leadership that everybody knows about. But I did read that article that you were talking about with some new products coming, and it sounds like, on the surface at least, that things are getting back on track. Although I remember thinking that some of the projected release dates in that article were pretty far out, so it wasn't like they were moving with a ton of speed. But I think that I think Nest is still a company to watch, obviously, and I do recall. Gosh, I'd have to go back and listen to it again, but I seem to recall like a vague hint from Gene about a potential like PoE camera, because I think we asked him about the power cord, and I think we may have even asked him a question about PoE, and he didn't give us a direct answer, which is not a huge surprise, but he kind of said, you just got to wait. And so, gosh, I don't know. I wouldn't be super surprised to see that. I don't know how soon, but I got to imagine, given their dedication to Pro and sort of bridging that gap, as we talked about with Gene, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, the cameras that they've had are great and all, but let's get real about outdoor security and make it in a form factor that is secure and not magnetically attached to some random thing with a 20-foot cable hanging off of it.
Well, hey, Ring is supposedly, I don't know if they've started shipping or when they will, but they've got the Ring Elite that we talked about after Cedia, which is a PoE device. And I didn't know that I'd ever see the day.
They have not.
Yeah. Well, at least they've got it on the roadmap, and who knows, but to my point, I didn't think I'd ever see the day that Ring would actually do that. So if Ring turned the corner and said, okay, we'll put out a product that's a little bit more, maybe a little bit trickier to install, and we might not get as much penetration into the do-it-yourself market, but it'll be a nice option for the do-it-for-me crowd. I think that Ring saw that, and I'm with you. I'm hoping that Nest will as well.
Yeah, and I think Ring is actually up their game for their outdoor cameras, because they've done the little spotlight things that we talked about that I thought were completely hideous until I actually looked at them and then realized, oh, they're powered off 120. This is going to be a slam dunk. It's going to be a hit. You're going to see electricians installing these things at people's homes. And again, it's going to be one of those things. You'll walk up, it'll be installed, and you won't have to deal with it as the technology integrator.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I can't wait till those things come out, because I'm going to get at least 3 of them and install them around my house. I'm ready for those.
Fort Knox over there.
Yeah. Some cameras
you got kids now, or you got one at least, so you got to start thinking about security a little differently, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I just kind of want to see what's going on around the house.
Yeah, no, they are a cool product, I think. I know you were kind of tearing into it a little bit when it first came out, but I think the form factor works, and functionally, it sounds like it'll be like you said, sort of a slam dunk, because you just, as long as you've got wiring out there for an external light fixture, you just replace that with this thing, and you've got a pretty robust outdoor security system, and definitely a deterrent as well. Yep,
and a light. It doesn't replace. I mean, the light stays with it. It has little LED lights on it, so you get a little bonus.
Very cool. Well, Seth, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up this week's episode. Once again, we want to thank all of our supporters who have become patrons of the show. If you're interested in learning more about that, last time here, the link is HomeTech.fm/support. We encourage you to go check that out. Also, if you have any feedback, comments, suggestions, a great way to reach us is over on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast.
Yep, absolutely. We enjoy every bit of feedback that we can get. So send it on over.
Keep it coming.
Well, with that, Jason, I guess we'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good, Seth. Take care.